Is screen time causing explosive reactions in your household? Well, you're not alone. Let's dive into the common ways to reduce tech induced tantrums. Hi, I'm Dr. Roseanne, and this is part of our Behavior Decoded series. And we are investigating why our kids get so rageful and angry when you ask them to get off their devices. I mean, who hasn't experienced that? And really, the question becomes, is this something that happens every once in a while, or is this happening all the time? If it's happening all the time, you've got yourself a major problem. And guess what? You're not alone. It is, other than picky eating, this is the most asked question I get from everybody. How do I support my child's being on their devices without it becoming World War III at home? It's really pretty serious for a lot of families. So the question is, why does my kid get device rage? Well, why are they so hooked, right? And I think we all know this, but it bears repeating, right? That these devices really counter boredom and it provides stimulation in the brain, right? They actually have psychologists who work with these app companies, these different games, really to help these designers make these games be more addictive, right? And even our wonderful learning apps, which I was a huge fan of, especially when we were exclusively homeschooling both the kids, they're gamified. So gamification means you're getting reinforcement. I mean, even courses today for parents are gamified because parents are losing their motivation. Maybe you do or don't realize that. So it really becomes a counter to boredom in the brain. And so it provides a very high level of stimulation. And it's hard to counter that unless you have clear boundaries. I'm going to say that clear boundaries. We're going to talk about some other things. But also, what else are you outlining as activities they should or shouldn't be doing? Don't just say go into your room, go in your closet, go and do this. Kids who are used to going to their devices, which we had no experience with. I mean, when I was in the fourth grade, we had a computer in our class. There was like four of them. And the class would split up and you'd go and stand behind the computer. Now it's like, how many devices does each kid have, for crying out loud? And, when you go to out to dinner, most kids are sitting at the restaurant, not talking to their parents. They're on their devices, which means parents are doing something wrong because you can be doing a lot of other things, right? So boredom and not knowing what else to do is a major reason why kids become rageful, right? And one of the biggest reasons why these battles happen is a lack of boundaries, clear boundaries and consistent boundaries with their devices. So how much time is your child going to have? And what are the boundaries? Like, how is that set up, right? Is it very clear? Is there something with a timer? Are you using technology to cut their Wi-Fi, which I always recommend? It saved our parenting life for many years. Now my kids are older, and so they can handle it differently. And also they are allowed to have more time, right? And it's different. They're playing with other people. There's different things. You have to do what works for you. I have friends who have high schoolers who are not allowed to do any gaming or anything during the week. We don't really do a lot of it during the week. There's definitely exceptions for that, especially when they've done what they're supposed to do. Who knows what else is going on? I don't, it's just very clear. Whatever your rules are, it must be clear and consistent. Otherwise, you're going to have rageful reactions because they can't handle it. So devices can become stress relief, or what I like to call digital comfort, right? So if you have a child that is dysregulated, maybe they have a clinical issue, maybe they're a neurodivergent with autism or PDA or ADHD, their nervous system is more prone to stress because they're processing a lot. They might have sensory issues, they might have learning issues, they might have difficulties with impulse control, all of those things all at once. Maybe they're anxious, maybe somebody has OCD. So your nervous system is going to constantly could be in a heightened state, could be their level of dysregulation could be over or could be under activation or both. And so things aren't moving in a way that's fluid. And if you think about this for yourself, whether you're a neurodivergent or you've just gone through stressful periods, you know you can't handle as much when you're in high stress. Why would your kid be any different? We forget that. Like, they are human beings and their body can only react to things, right? Right? Behavior is a language of children. So when they get on a device, they get to zone, right? That's why do people binge watching Netflix, right? Because we're disconnecting, we're zoning, right? Um, and it can provide a comfort for them. And so what you have to think about is, what other forms of comfort and coping skills are you teaching? Because if that's the only one, and then you're going to constantly be in a tussle with them over this, right? And rage can be a part of that. Sometimes it's sensory or social overwhelm can lead to wanting to constantly be on your device, right? So if your body is physically uncomfortable, you're not getting what we call that sensory diet, which is in our self-regulation mastery blueprint and calm brain community. You can go to we have that all in there. You can go to drroseanne.com/self regulation mastery. So your body's in overwhelmed, you again want to disconnect, and that device can provide that comfort. So when you're asking your child to get off and they haven't had their sensory needs met, and this really can happen to an adult, it can happen to a teenager. Sensory isn't just about little kids, even though you're more apt to see them. It can be in a neurotypical kid, it can be in a neurodivergent kid more. They don't want to do that. Sometimes it's about social overwhelm. So they would rather do an isolated activity, something that they're doing on their own, or only interacting with kids, which neurotypical kids do on a device, right? Sometimes it's because they don't want to disconnect from social because they're craving it. And I think all kids are craving it. And I think things have completely changed socially for kids during in this what we're calling a post-pandemic world, and they can feel that they really want to be on there because everybody else is. And the amount of time that kids have, right? Let's talk about one of the best things, as I mentioned earlier, setting clear and consistent limits. But we know that even teenagers, they're spending about 7.25 hours a day on devices. Younger kids are spending about 10 hours a day. Isn't that shocking? And that's probably on average because it's including weekend time where a lot of kids have unlimited time. So, what are your boundaries? Are you using products like Gryphon or Circle or any of these other things to do the heavy lifting for you about how much time you have on your device? I highly, 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 again, highly recommend it. And then, are we being clear and consistent? Now, I like for kids to, as they're getting more control and able to do things, and understand themselves, actually keep like a record of how long they think they were on their device. If you don't have access to one of these tools, which are too expensive, have your kid write down how long you think you were on, and then track it for them so they can help to understand. Because a lot of times, I mean, my gosh, I go on my device and bing, 3 hours go by because I'm using whatever I'm writing. I'm usually writing. Remember, I'm writing my next book about self-regulation. I'm pretty excited. So just make sure your boundaries are clear and consistent. You don't lose your cool. And if your kids get angry, then what's the consequence for that, right? So if my kid flips out on me or any of those things, our rule is they don't get to have it the next day. And then are you consistent on that? Don't just give in because your kid then is totally angry at you the next day. You can really get yourself into a hole where they just know that if they get irritated and angry, and I mean their brain knows, then they're going to continue to act like that. You're going to be stuck in a pattern. So, if you're looking for more ways to help your kids self regulate, because you know that's the key to lifelong happiness, join our self regulation mastery blueprint and calm brain community. Go to drroseanne.com/, self regulation mastery. It's late because designed by me, has the best science backed tools, methods, techniques to cut through the overwhelm and really give you the clear roadmap. There's a reason why people fly in every week from all over the world, because I am a super strategist, not just in helping the brain heal, but in changing behavior. So join our blueprint and calm brain community today.